Yo, what's going on, guys? I don't know why I said I was just testing my mic and it ended up working. So let's get right into it. We're talking Utah Jazz off-season recap. I want to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section before we start today's video. What do you guys think of the Utah Jazz and what they did this offseason? So let me hear those thoughts. Like and subscribe for more content like this. And I also will be posting anything I do. If you guys don't know, I work for Hoops Hype, and I just post all our videos and all the stuff that doesn't go on the site on here. But let's get right into it. So basically, the Utah Jazz, obviously the big thing was the Lauri Markkanen renegotiation and extension, which we had been expecting for a while. And what it meant was Lauri Markkanen will not be traded for at least 1 year, and more than likely for the foreseeable future. They drafted Cody Williams, which I thought they basically got great value in every draft pick. They took Cody Williams at 10, who I thought was the best college player available, and he had the highest floor, even if he doesn't fulfill. Also, really cool guy. Talked to him a lot. Go check those interviews out. Second, Isaiah Collier. I'm not really a huge fan of his, but he fell to them to 29. And this guy at one point was projected to be the number one pick of the draft during the pre-draft cycle. So the fact that they got someone who, yeah, he is a high reward, low risk, boom or bust type prospect, they got him at great value at the end of the first. And then a legit guy who was a borderline lottery pick, Kyle Filipowski, due to, obviously, everybody knows, some off the field stuff, off the court stuff. Seems like he fell because of that. They get him there on a 4-year deal now in the second round. Great value. They bring in Oscar Schwiebe. They have Jason Preston and Micah Potter as their two ways. They brought in Svi Mykhailiuk, 3-year deal. Basically, from my understanding, is same agent as Lauri Markkanen. So it seemed like if you tie up Lauri, you bring in Svi. Patty's going to be a guy who's going to help them with their, I would say, with the adjustment period. Because I had a couple of Utah fans tell me in the comment section, as I think this is the last year of the Utah tank, because I think the following year, I just feel like this is a really good draft class, as well as draft capital wise. I think they're incentivized to go tank this year, where they know Lauri won't be traded, and try to get a Cooper Flag or one of those top prospects in a really loaded draft class, and kind of try to move off some veterans or figure out who's worth being there. And I think that's kind of what they did this offseason was, all right, we're hearing the whole Walker Kessler rumors. They brought in Drew Eubanks, and they brought in Kyle Filipowski and Taylor Hendricks. So seemingly, we're assuming that John Collins, Walker Kessler, Colin Sexton, and Jordan Clarkson are the 4 dudes that probably that they want to move off of eventually at some point in the next year for either draft assets or just to create cap flexibility. And I think they want to figure out, all right, Lauri, who is Taylor Hendricks, Johnny Juzang, Svi Mykhailiuk, Cody Williams, Bree Sensabaugh, Isaiah Collier, Keontae George. Those are all the guys that they have right here. Also, they have Babacar San competing for a roster spot, like on an Exhibit 10. I think he's just going to be a guy who can spend the time on their G League team. I personally think the way they look at this is, I think the last 2 years, there's been points of the season where the Jazz were competitive, and it looked like they could, if they wanted to, make a play-in run, but then they let the bottom fall out, and they just remain a lottery team. Maybe that happens again, because they do have some guys, but I think they really do want to move off of Collins and Sexton and Clarkson for sure. We're hearing the Kessler stuff, and it just makes sense, because I think they rather, Kessler's going into year 3, and they don't want to be the ones who give Kessler the contract. I understand that. I think they want to figure out, do we have a point guard, or is this draft us figuring out who's our point guard? No offense to George. I love George, and I think he's a good cornerstone. I think he's more of a shooting guard. I think Lauri's the power forward. Now is Lauri your small forward? I think he is your power forward. You get a different center. I think Taylor Hendricks, where does he fit in there is the big thing. Sensible. I think Cody Williams can be the small forward, and that's what they're trying to figure out right now. So bringing in, Eubanks on a 2-year, $10 million, I think gives them just a solid center. that Johnny Juzang's just been a good story for them, and we know they've been in a holding pattern regarding what they've done, and we've all were waiting because based on what they did by spending that money, they've reached the salary floor. So for the Utah Jazz this upcoming year, I think it's just trying to figure out which players I think Keontae George for sure is part of this. I think Cody Williams for sure is part of this. And I like to think that Taylor Hendricks is there, but it's a weird fit right now. So I think they're trying to figure out of Sensabaugh, Hendricks, Collier, Johnny Juzang, all 3 two-way guys, who's actually a part of this future, like realistically. Also, I thought I started playing these highlights way earlier. And I think that's the biggest thing for them is just trying to figure out, okay, where do we go from here now with the Utah Jazz? I like to think that what they were looking at is just trying to build their assets. And I think that's where you look at their future draft picks. What do they look? Because I don't think the Celtics ever with Danny Ainge let the bottom fall out. And the Jazz own the Cavaliers and the Timberwolves pick in this year's draft. But the thing is with their 2025 pick, it's currently protected 1 through 10 by for OKC or against OKC. So OKC gets the pick if it's outside of 10, and if it doesn't convey in 2025, it's top 8 protected in 2026. So if by then Utah's obligation, let me just put it this way, Utah does not control their pick for the next 2 years. So Utah, arguably, you could say, for the next 2 seasons, would like to be bad because they want to be a bottom 8 team in the league or have the best odds to get a bottom 8 pick for the next 2 years. This year, bottom 10, and the following year, bottom 8, because then they get to keep their pick, not have to give it to OKC. And if it does not convey to OKC by 2026, then their obligation to OKC will be extinguished. And that is due to the fact that that's just how the language of that trade. So in their best interest, they either want to be bad for the next 2 years or be bad this year and the next year be good enough where they don't care that they lose a pick that's in the 20s. So again, they're incentivized to just be bad, and they're going to go into this next draft with 3 first-round picks, 1 from the Cleveland, 1 from Minnesota. So I would not be surprised if that at this point you look at their team, and we've shown you what that roster looks like. If they do package a pick, Minnesota's or Cleveland's or somebody's with a different for somebody who could become available. Now, NBA trade candidates this season are going to be interesting, as I think it's going to be a little bit different. I really do. I think some of the guys that are going to become available for them, it's going to be hard to decide who those players will be because your assumption is it's got to be a young guy. It's not like they're going to go after Kyle Kuzma. It doesn't make sense. Nor does an Anthony Simons or DeAndre Ayton, Cam Johnson. Those are just guys who are paid already. Like I think they'll trade for someone who hasn't been paid already, that they be the ones to pay him. Sure, I could see that being the case, or even trading for a guy like Wendell Carter Jr. I think they want to. I also would not be surprised if they're in the market for a point guard and they start to look for somebody. We've heard the Brandon Ingram. I just think, again, the Minnesota Cleveland deal picks would be used for a deal of Brandon Ingram. But again, the other thing, and I don't mean to say, but again, the whole thing when you do a deal like that is, are you going to be fine with trading and accelerating your timeline? That's the whole thing.